What's up? This is a review of Iron Man 3. It's really hard for me to say this because I have done special effects. I know how much work they take. I know how many extremely talented people there were working on this film. And so much of it is so freaking good. But I really didn't like this movie. And I think the reason why is because, well, there are a few very specific things. And I'm not going to have any spoilers here at the beginning of the video. Like last time, I will do a non-spoiler review. Then I will talk about some more specific things, but I'll let you know first. I'll give you time to click away. I really, really did not like the villain. I felt like the villain had basically no real believable motivation for what they were trying to do. Did not make any sense to me. I could not get behind that character. I could not believe in that character. And I am a big proponent of the philosophy that your hero is only as good as your villain. So this movie, in my opinion, had a terrible villain with retarded motivations, and really did not like that character arc at all. Another thing I didn't like about the film was, and it seemed, I understand, and I am totally okay with the fact that, you know, sometimes people just want to make a movie or want to go see a movie to laugh, have fun, be entertained, not take it too seriously, and I'm totally fine with that. I have no problem with that. And if you go into the film with that kind of mindset, that you're just really not going to take it seriously at all, you'll probably enjoy it. But this movie, it felt like they were trying to jam jokes down your throat constantly. I mean, like, way more than either of the past two Iron Man films. And it felt really unbalanced to me, especially since they have these heinous acts of terrorism going on. You know, you're seeing like one of the most hardcore acts of terrorism you could ever imagine in one moment, and then we're turning around and turning it into a joke the next. And it makes it really hard to know whether you're supposed to take it seriously, whether you're supposed to fear these villains, or whether you're supposed to laugh at them. And I know that they have struck a pretty good balance with that, especially in the first Iron Man film. You know, Tony Stark is this character that he doesn't take anything seriously. You know, he laughs in the face of danger. People really like heroes like that, you know, kind of that witty comeback sort of personality. But you have to have some moments where you feel like the hero's actually in danger. You have to have some moments where that hero is taking the situation seriously. And it seems like they tried to do that, but those moments were so short and then just immediately followed up by some kind of ridiculous joke that it just felt really imbalanced to me. I really didn't like that about the film. But the humor is good. It's just not well paced. It's not always appropriate, but it is actually a pretty funny movie. There's a lot of parts that I did laugh at that I thought were great, but it did start to feel fatiguing. It was like, I can't take anything in this movie seriously. And I tend to like a little more balance in those terms. But another thing I didn't like was that Tony Stark himself, I felt like his character in this movie was really poorly written as well. Because we've had 3 movies now where he's gone from being this playboy, billionaire guy who doesn't care about anyone, you know, sleeps with every girl he comes across, partying all the time, and he started to become a more committed person, started to kind of develop some values over the course of the last 2 movies, started to take life a little more seriously, because let's be honest, like, his character originally, that's not a healthy way to live. Like, he was a jerk. He wasn't a good guy, but he's becoming more that way. He's learning and he's growing, and that's what's interesting to watch. In this movie, it's like they threw all of that development out the window. And he's just as freaking dumb as he was in the very beginning. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers at this time, but, you know, you think he had come to care about people, and then, I don't know, he's just always constantly trying to, he's not taking anything seriously, and I guess that's, you know, fine for some people, but I felt like it was a huge, like, backpedal for the development that they had, the progress they had made with that character over the course of 2 films prior to it. The freaking special effects are spectacular. They're incredible. They're awesome. There were a couple of spots where I felt like the animation was a little stiff. And of course it's supposed to be stiff. It's a big iron, you know, suit of armor. But there's a couple places, you know, he's walking around massaging a character's shoulders or walking down some steps where it did feel even a little more stiff than it should have been. It didn't look quite right. But beyond that, like, perfect special effects. Like, freaking awesome. That's about as much as I can say without spoiling anything. So, I'm going to move on to the spoiler part. I'm going to talk about specific things in the film. So, if you don't want to see any spoilers, click away. Alright, so, let's talk about the villain first. Guy Pearce plays the villain in this movie, and I love Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce is a phenomenal actor. He's one of my favorite actors, actually. I loved him in Memento. I loved him in Count of Monte Cristo. I think he's freaking great. And his delivery is good, as it always is. You know, his intonation, the way he speaks, you know, his movement, his motion. He is a good actor. So, there isn't, like, I have no problem with his performance at all. What I have a problem with is just the character himself. He was, you know, you see him at the very beginning of the movie. This was 13 years before the events of, you know, in the present events of the movie. He approaches Tony Stark and this lady he's with, and is trying to get them to collaborate with him on some new research he's done. It's brain research. Apparently, they've found some place in the brain that where they can rewrite DNA, and it's the next step of human evolution. They don't really explain that very well, and I know that, like, why would they have to? It's not real science, but I felt like they tried even less than they should to make that a little more believable, because it's like, okay, so we tapped into this part of the brain where if we make some changes and you know, do our science to this part of the brain, then we can make people have regenerative powers and, like, breathe fire out of their mouths. And that was really weird to me. It was like, so this next step of evolution, like the great, you know, expansion of the human race, you know, biologically, is going to be that we can have restorative powers, we can heal ourselves faster, and, like, we can turn ourselves into bombs, essentially, or, like, breathe fire, or, like, melt stuff. That's the next step in human evolution? Fire powers and healing powers? And I don't know, it just feels like they really didn't open the door on that at all. They could have done way more with that, but they didn't, and I was kind of disappointed in that. But the character, the villain, he, you know, Tony Stark blows him off the way that he does to everyone. He's like, I'll meet you on the roof in 5 minutes and we'll start talking. So he goes up to the roof and he waits, you know, for hours, and Tony Stark never shows up. You know, that's fine. But how do you go from being there, from being a guy who feels like it's the next step of human evolution? You know, this is going to be a great leap for humanity. I want to help people. I want to, you know, how do you go from that to becoming a freaking terrorist? That doesn't make any sense. He literally has no reason at all to start killing people that were not involved just because he's pissed at this one freaking guy for blowing him off. That was just so stupid to me. That did not make any sense. Like, what the fetch? How do you? That's not legitimate motivation, or the you know, the downward spiral into a life of terrorism. It's not, and I couldn't believe in that at all. So that was pretty dumb. There were a couple of other characters in the film I really didn't care for. Her name is Maya Hansen, played by Rebecca Hall. I don't know what her motivation was either. because she starts out as being this person that, like, she's figured out these healing restorative powers or whatever, and then she joins up with the terrorists for some reason that I can't understand. I didn't care for that character at all. Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin was really good. He was obviously having lots of fun with his performance. He's had some really funny lines. But that character was so obnoxious. And that's a lot of the imbalance I was talking about earlier between, like, the moments you're supposed to take seriously and then the jokes, and how the jokes just kind of, like, swallowed up all of that. He was a large reason for that. And I don't blame him, because obviously that's what they wanted. That's what they were going for in the film. That was a choice that the filmmakers made. And he was freaking funny. But that character was a large reason why I felt there was a big imbalance. Him and Tony Stark both. Anyways, so yeah, a lot of the jokes were really funny. I just felt like they weren't appropriate all the time. You go from, like, a moment, just as an example, where you have this guy gonna shoot this guy in the head on TV, on national television. They've, like, hacked the networks. This is going, everyone's watching this. He's like, Mr. President, you don't call me right now. I'm gonna shoot this guy in the head. And the president calls, and he shoots him in the head anyway. Like, hardcore stuff like that. Blowing up Air Force One. People falling out of planes. Crazy acts of terrorism like this. And then you're turning around and turning it into a joke, like, immediately. Like, those moments can't seek in. You can't, those don't have any impact anymore. They lose their impact because you're turning everything into a joke. I really, really did not like that at all. And then Robert Downey Jr., who's an incredible actor. His delivery, his wittiness, perfect for this character, Tony Stark. But Tony Stark is a freaking idiot in this film again. Like, he talks in one scene about how much he loves Pepper Potts, and how everything he does is for her, and he needs to protect her. And then he gets on TV and tells the terrorists where he lives, where she lives. Come attack me. Come at me, bro. I'm right here. Here's my address. Here's where I live. Oh, whoops, I forgot about that person I love so much. She lives there too. Oopsie. What is that bullcrap? Like, that's a huge backwards pedal for that character. He had come to a point where he, like, could actually be in a committed relationship and care about someone. And then you just throw that all out the window. Hated that. Also, they keep alluding to some event or series of events that happened in the Avengers, and maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm the only person in the world who has not seen the Avengers, but I didn't see the Avengers. And he has, like, this PTSD. He's having anxiety attacks, like the whole movie. Anytime anyone brings up what happened in the Avengers, he's, like, freaks out. He goes crazy. And they never explain what it was. And I guess they're just assuming everyone's seen that film, but you shouldn't do that. You should never just assume everyone's seen that film. All I know from watching the film is that something happened in New York. He was, like, going crazy after he saw, people with all these freaking powers and aliens or whatever happened there. And so anytime some traumatic experience happened, and I don't know what it is, and he, like, hyperventilates and goes into anxiety attacks over it. But I don't know why. And they never explained it. So I didn't like that either. And it seemed kind of like a cheap way to, like, tie those two films in together. It didn't feel well thought out at all. What else? What else can I complain about? And I don't mean to sit here and complain about the film, again, because there was a lot of great humor and great action, amazing action. But that wasn't the other thing. So they have this big action sequence at the end where, like, all these Iron Man suits come flying out that he's just, like, been hiding. It's like the ace up his sleeve. So he's been waiting for just the right moment to, like, call in 1 billion Iron Man suits, and he can, like, jump into different ones, and, like, this one gets broken, and he just, like, calls another one in, and it, like, builds around him. Really cool looking stuff. But why didn't he pull that out when his house is being blown up, and the woman he loves is being missiles are being shot at her? Why didn't he pull that out then? Like, why did he arbitrarily wait until the end of the movie just so we could have a big spectacular action sequence to do that? It just feels like they had a sequence of action events that they felt like they wanted to do. And they were like, let's just loosely throw them into the elements of, a plot. We need the twist to be here. Let's have the twist be that he has a million Iron Man suits at his disposal. But there's no reason why he didn't just use that earlier, you know? That's what... This isn't a well-constructed film from my perspective because of that. It feels like it's just supposed to be a big, fun, funny summer action flick that you're not supposed to take seriously at all. I like taking my movies seriously. Sue me for it, hate me for it, I don't care. It's just how I am. So, that's my feelings on Iron Man 3. Thanks for watching. Peace.